I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
We're AutoSave. Welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching Mushoku Tensei, Season 2, Episode 3. Last episode, we saved Sarah. We also had a pretty interesting interaction with a character named Soul. I expect more from him, potentially this episode.
Definitely.
Yeah, I know they're in very different locations right now, but Soul dropped this, key word for me, which was labyrinth.
Mm-hmm.
And if he is well versed in labyrinths and frequents them, I just think that there's potential there that, one day he might be able to help us in terms of finding Zenith,
And not only that, getting the drop of that keyword at all just makes me also think about Roxy and Roxy's idea of where and how she'd fall in love.
True.
So,
very true.
A lot is coming.
Yeah, he also, I don't know, last episode in general and the things that Soul was saying, reminded me of things Paul said to Rudy in, what episode was it in Season 1? It was 17 or, 17 or 16 maybe. And it was the opposite sides of the same coin in terms of what he was saying to Rudy last episode. And I wonder how Rudy's going to process that, because he seems to have come a far way from the beginning of this season mentally, his well-being is definitely better than it was at the start of the season, but it seems like there's still room to grow there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's still his smile, his facial expressions, his eyes, his demeanor that seems to rub certain people the wrong way, possibly has him be misunderstood, but also it might be that these people are getting a closer look at reading him emotionally through those expressions.
Very true. Rest in peace, Mimir. We didn't know you too long.
Too long.
Always sucks to see a dead character. Without further ado, though, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
He's now making it a habit of hanging out with them.
Quagmire. Wow. Almost constantly.
Is she gonna get jealous? Oh. It's fair.
Changing the topic.
Oh, I'd love to see that for close combat. Romantic.
Interesting detail that she's not wearing her earring anymore. I know she lost it, but I thought Rudy found it. Aww.
She looks so cute.
I love the music in this show. 2 of them? Or weighing the options?
Wait, matching? Do you think it's matching?
That'd be really cute.
It is!
I love the idea that regardless of where Rudy is, he always has something to, remind him of his past with people.
Yeah. How forward is Sarah?
Right, Paul? I'm getting nervous.
Me too. Yep. Yeah, I think so. I think she's realizes that.
Do you think she'll stumble upon the
I
shrine?
was just thinking that. That would be
We
a
had
mood
the
killer.
Roxy drop earlier.
Mood killer for sure.
I don't feel like I'm supposed to be watching this.
No.
何度も感じていた違和感の正体に
Is he not into it?
何の問題もなかった。そう。彼
It's
女には問題がない。
Like Eris or Roxy?
俺の方だった。何も訴えてなどいない。沈黙していたのだ。なんでだ。どうしてだろう。そんな今まであんなに機関棒だったのにどうなってしまったのだろうか。
私別にあんたの子あんたに対する借りを返したかっただけだからみたいなもんだし。
This is really sad.
もうさもう一本だ。
おい、そんなの
だとしろよ。
Soul.
Oh no, not the person to meet
This
at
is
this
not
time.
how I thought this episode would go.
Yeah.
Oh shit!
望みだったんだろうが。してて何がおかしいんだよ。他人をけなしてバカにして嫉妬して嫌われて、それでも同じ態度でいられるならたくねえんだよ。出るんだよ。それだね。バレだ。なくなるんだよ。嘘でもいいから笑って。
Why do you leave me?
あんなやり方されると辛いんだよ。俺はもう終わりって来いよ。殴れよ。俺を見下して笑えよ。
Doesn't even seem like he was punching very hard.
He knows.
悪かったよ。俺が悪かった。世で一番不幸かもしれないな。
何かわかるんだよ。
ちょっと吐き出そうぜ。
Let's figure something out. Now's the time.
Soul's like a big brother. That, yes.
Don't hide behind fancy words.
敬語はいいから。
もっと前のことでさ、好きな子がなんていうかまあしたんだよ。
誰にだって初めてはあるわな。
相手はいなくて、もうとっくにた。
泣くなって。それが原因だ。
なんでエリスは。
ああ、俺の経験で言えば
直線の行動。やっぱり下手くそだった。
直そうぜ。
Let's fix you up.
でもどうやって。
わからねえ。それで上書きするしかねえんじゃねえか。プロに任せてみようぜ。
I don't want to. I don't want to leave it to a pro.
What is this arc?
I don't want to. She had red hair.
Oh god.
I know, she had like dark
Stop.
red hair. She did. Oh, and her name starts with E.
The wine like Eris's red hair.
Mm-hmm. Was it the little girl running? The hair color.
I don't know what to do.
I know. I like that it's like a see-through. That's cool.
It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, what's gonna happen?
This is going to bond Soul and Rudy for life.
どうすりゃいいんだろうな。
Oh, like getting his heart broken. Or them leaving. Roxy!
一瞬ロキシーの顔が思い浮か
Do you think that he needs to, like, be holding it?
とりあえず今日は飲め。
The thing with Sarah probably happened too fast.
おお、もうそんな時間か。迷宮に潜るときだよ。焦らねえよは下に降りていけば行くほど強いして連携もしてくる。ここで徐々に慣らしていく。
That's actually really sound love advice right there, Soul. Good job.
有効だ。
サラだっけか。
って何がだ。確かに俺は早いけど。
Oh my god.
誰もそれもねえぞ。
と時間をかけて心の準備。
いや、覚悟とか準備とか。
女はお前に熱を上げてたように見えた。
She was like protecting her pride there.
もう一度会って話してみればいいんじゃねえか。
方か下にでもそうしてみます。
What did he see?
あんなガキみたいな女。
Oh no! No! No!
女ならエリーゼみたいなバインバインじゃなきゃダメだ。
No! I am going to go out of the room right now. Oh my god. Okay.
お買い物してく
いや、泥沼。それ以上は。
るかもありません。
Arrow through the heart.
今のは最低。二度と顔見せないで。
The dagger.
It's hard because like she also first said mean things to him. So it's like, I don't know how to feel right now. It was out of line.
バカ。とにかく今からすぐに追っかけだからおい立て走れ。
俺もういい。何もしたく。
一度家に帰ったらどうだ。アスラ王国か。さすがに遠すぎるな。じゃあ俺たちと来るか。
That's the transition. He can't work with counter arrow anymore.
A huge labyrinth turned up over in the Duchy of Nereus.
俺たちは今日中に立とうと考えてる。
そこまでしてくれるんだ。
気持ち悪い笑みを浮かべてさも全敬語を話しやがるやつ。
Couldn't. Past tense.
でもお前に関しちゃもう腹の底ならもう嫌う理由がねえ。大きく誤解していた気がする。遠ざけて逃げていた。いいやつなのかもしれない。
行きます。連れて行ってください。
よし。
Might be an after credit.
Looks like there's some time.
This feels like an end of an arc.
I mean, it really is because we just got a narrative transition from one group to basically another and a place to go. So that would make sense.
ああ知ってるか。最近はぐれ竜を20人じゃ退治できちまったんだとか。そう、泥沼のルーです。
いただけたら私の体を好きにしても
Oh gosh.
ワセラントだ。ピピン。
あらそうようやく見つけましたわ
Okay, that was Mushoku Tensei, Season 2, Episode 3. That was an episode. And we saw a lot of things.
I wanted to leave the room on multiple occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a diss to the show, definitely not as a diss, but because I am not stronger. I am a weak individual. And when I get embarrassed, I want to go and run away.
Yeah. But it's like, I get like... I don't know what the word is, but I want to like have like blankets draped over me and like a hoodie like
You want
curled
to be
up.
able to cover yourself a
But
little bit.
I want to like look with one
Yeah.
eye at the screen, you know,
Yeah.
like I want to see what's happening, but I feel like
you almost feel like you need protection.
yeah.
Oh.
Speaking of protection, Rudy didn't need it because he didn't do anything.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It was an interesting route to go that went deeper into his emotional like well-being and what the repercussions of the heiress moment would have on him. I think that if you asked me 7 episodes into season 1, if Rudy would act or perform or not perform the way that he did this episode, I would have trouble believing you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I would be like, oh, Rudy wouldn't even think that deep about it. He'd take any opportunity he had.
And he would yeah.
And this, even like the way, and my first thought to what I just said there is like, oh, well, he tried to do, no. Like this wasn't him trying to just take an opportunity or anything. Like the whole buildup of conversation between him and Sarah that was happening at the bar and the internal monologues he was having about it. It wasn't just him trying to jump at a situation to take advantage of it and then he wasn't able to do it. There was a lot of prep and thought and meaning behind his inner monologue that I wouldn't have expected in a few episodes, after a few episodes in season 1.
His inner monologue during that bar interaction was wildly different in actuality to his inner monologues at other times where he felt like he might get lucky, if you will.
Yeah.
And in this one, it's like he kept kind of it's like he couldn't jump in. He couldn't put his foot in. He was like, I need to go with the flow, but I'm not going with the flow. And at other times, he was like, ooh, can I do this? Am I able to do this? Can I take this? It was more like he was debating with himself whether he should take this opportunity. And in this, it was more like, how do I take this opportunity? How do I get myself to actually do this?
Yeah.
And it's just a very different conversation he was having with himself there.
So I want to back up a couple of episodes because I'm because of the dialogue in this episode, I'm having to revisit some of my thoughts from that episode that Eris left and the things leading up to that interaction that they had there. I brought up the idea then after Eris's kitten line that did you think that there's a possibility that Eris is pregnant?
Mm-hmm.
I already, after watching this episode, not even considering that thought, wondered if Eris owes Rudy an apology and what that would look like.
Mm-hmm.
If they meet up again, and on top of everything, she was pregnant, which is, in my opinion, is a lot less likely after this episode. I don't even know what the fuck that would do to Rudy. I don't know what the next interaction between Rudy and Eris is. I don't imagine it being anytime soon. But
because if it happened now, I feel like it would be bad.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm saying that when it does happen at some point in the future, even if it's a long time away, I have no fucking clue what's in store in terms of emotional conversations that they need to have with each other.
I feel like Eris was on the tipping point of growing into an emotionally intelligent young woman, and I think that when she does this traveling with Ghislaine, there is a high probability that she might think back and be like, I should have written something different. I should have handled that situation different. Or maybe she'll be like, that was good for me and I prioritized myself there. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm really curious to how Eris will view the actions of leaving there, because really she did just leave someone all by themselves.
Yeah, but it that's all dependent on you had a good point there, and if she alluding to if she did enough there, right? That she left a letter, she was doing what was best for her.
But I was talking specifically would she have changed the words in it?
But that's all dependent on Eris was always the most protective person in this cast over Rudy's emotional state.
Yes.
I don't know if Rudy would ever let her know how much it affected him. Mm-hmm. And that, if she never knew what he was at, what his, actions were now and how far he's fallen now, then that wouldn't necessarily prompt anything like an apology. And if it did, then Rudy might just right off the bat be like, no, it's not necessary. But if she was, if she was in our point of view, right? Mm-hmm. If she was watching this right now and she saw how Rudy is, I don't know if she'd punch him or say sorry. You know, like
It opens up a really great conversation with like the Eris situation, but also with Sarah in this episode is that I'm like, okay, good for her for doing what she feels like is right for herself. Are you really responsible for someone else's emotional state? Like, what are your, like, boundaries are good. Like, I feel like in both situations, I'm torn between like a respect of like, oh, this person's boundaries, this person isn't in charge, or they aren't to blame for someone else's emotional state or fragility. Like, if you don't want to be with someone or you want to leave, that is well within your right.
yeah.
And you are not responsible for how they handle their next months or so after you
Agreed.
leave. And so, but it really has you like torn emotionally, because we're following Rudy, the one that was left. That's the emotions that we're stuck in. We're seeing the aftermath of what happened to him. We're seeing the like blame of like, not necessarily blame's the right word, but like, why did you leave me? Like, you left me. Why do they always leave me? And so we're feeling his emotions and we're feeling for him. And then we also have this scene with Sarah in this episode where totally we can be like, that was not cool of her to say those things when she left. It was not cool.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure she was probably filled with like insecurities.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that is totally valid.
Yeah.
To feel those emotions. What is not valid is how she handled those feelings and emotions. She did say something that hurt Rudy, and if anything, till the end of the episode, he truly believed that she wasn't actually into him. And so we can say, okay, Sarah said some things she shouldn't have said. At the end here, Rudy, handling those emotions and feelings, also says something that hurts the other.
Yeah.
And so, but it has you in this tough spot because it's like, oh, Rudy, you just said something really mean to Sarah. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, but Sarah also said something mean to you. So if I'm just I have to like put equal blame on both of you guys for how you're handling your emotional, like your feelings inside. You're not handling them well because you're hurting other people. You're lashing out and you're hurting other people with your words. And we know that Soul was very specific to Rudy about like his word choices and that he should just be a lot simpler. But that there's some really great conversations that are happening.
Before we get too far into the Sarah stuff, because I do want to talk about it, I wanted to say one more thing regarding like the heiress, because I wanted to go back that like a few episodes ago. I wonder what this version of Rudy would look like if he never experienced his previous life. Because that's one huge like aspect of this that Eris didn't know and doesn't know in regards to her decision of leaving that day. Like if Rudy was a fresh start in this life and then Eris left, would he be as traumatized or have as many issues of abandonment and fear of being left as he is now with the harassment that he endured and loneliness he endured in his previous life over so many years?
I think to some degree it would be close. I mean, if we took away the past life, we have a character who was uprooted from his life and his security in multiple times. He was taken from his home. First, he didn't want to leave his home because that was his secure place. He was taken out of the gates of his home, and then he was forcibly removed from his safe space and his home and his family. And then he was transported to another continent where he then had to care for this other person. And then he like has all this emotional stuff happen with his family and that Paul conversation. And then he builds this relationship with Eris, and then he realizes about all of his family and that he needs to be caring about finding them. I think that we could have a very similar Rudy. Maybe not exactly the same, but I would say the emotional response here, if I as a viewer didn't know there was a past life, I would think an emotional response like this was fair for what Rudy has gone through.
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain extent. I definitely think that like as we saw in a couple episodes ago when Rudy was alone in his room, what was projected onto the back of his wall and all of his past memories there, I do think that all of that combined does make a huge difference for like Rudy's like maybe I don't know what the correct term should be, but like how quickly it gets so extreme, or
Okay,
how
I like where you're going with that.
when we saw by the way, Crunchyroll isn't loading, so it's going to be hard for us to reference specific scenes, but when he I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but towards the end of the episode reached for the dagger before Soul could stop
So
him.
like a severity.
I think that he's just been beaten up so much more than a Rudy who would have never experienced that previous life, and because of such, because of everything that has happened to him, he's quicker to get to that point.
So the past life not only makes it quicker to fall into a pit, it also makes it harder to climb out of that pit.
Yeah.
And it makes whatever you feel like you deserve in terms of consequences much more severe.
Yeah.
Like, just kill me now. Or punch me now. He's very much like the Rudy that we know now, on just the, like, glance of something that could hurt him. He's like, I would rather just die now than have to deal with anything.
Yeah. And I wonder if at all it would be different if he didn't experience that. I think that's interesting.
It probably would be easier for... Honestly, okay, maybe... Say we looked at this episode and we took away, just to theorize, took away the past life and what possible severity that would bring to Rudy's emotional state. He probably... in just theorizing, by the time he is at that place that Soul took him to, and he had that conversation with Elise, I think her name was, we could have had a positive thing happen there.
Yeah.
Positive for Rudy.
Interesting.
Or just that he would be brought to a conclusion that would be positive for him by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And not that we end the episode with him just still being... sad and just being whisked away of like, I don't want to deal with this, okay, come with me.
But that severity of abandonment where he ends up feeling like, at least like alluded to have a moment with somebody he is certain would never leave him. Like, if like to that severity, if that would be the change there. Yeah, I feel you.
So yeah, how this whole episode would have gone of where, okay, Rudy's in a bad mood over, failure to perform. The resolution of those feelings, those negative feelings, probably would have been a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And also could have had an aspect where he ends up actually having a conversation with Sarah. And Sarah maybe even was wanting... Sarah was there with Suzanne.
Yeah.
It's possible that Sarah wanted to apologize over how she reacted and how she left.
Yeah.
It is possible that she felt bad about that.
That is very true.
She could have been looking for him and wanting to speak with him. And maybe she went to Suzanne about it, and Suzanne was like, you need to, like, you shouldn't have handled it like that.
Yeah. Okay, we got it working, Crunchyroll, by the way. So I want to talk a little bit about Sarah, because we got some information about her. Like, her dad was a hunter, and I thought that was pretty cool, is why she uses the archery, and she, like, recognized that it could be, like, a little inconvenient at times. But I don't know, I like that, like, character building, that she has, like, extensive backstory to explain her, like, weapon choice. That's awesome. And the date idea being knives and matching
also,
knives.
Like, her secondary weapon choices. Yeah. I know she said she uses her knife for other things, which would make sense for someone who was born and raised by a hunter.
Yeah.
That you would have a small dagger like that and a bow and arrow.
Yeah. I love the idea that her date idea was to get matching knives, because it's a cute idea, it's great, but also it would give Rudy something that we've seen him get from almost every other relationship with a character he's had in the show.
You don't want to have matching with someone that you don't like.
Yeah. You
don't go out of your way to match someone you don't like.
Yeah. And then when we're getting into that scene that had like the wildest gradient of black.
The black slash.
Yeah.
Like just half the screen was black.
Okay, does that mean it's been animated and then in post they put the gradient over it?
I at first was like, is this like a censorship thing?
You
like,
have
that
to.
was the first thought I had was like, is she there and we're covering her body?
So, like, well, even not just her, right? There are scenes with Rudy that it's the same thing. And, like, in my mind, okay, it's either one of two things. It's a completed scene that's a gradient over it, which makes more sense to me. Or it's a 3/4 of the way completed scene, because there's no way you're going to be able to animate this from the gradient, like, start to finish. So, like, that's an interesting point of contention. But there was a really, so weird to bring up, a really cool detail in the animation during one of these gradient sequences. When Rudy was talking about how he wasn't able to perform, he hit his knee,
that is nice.
and you can see like a ripple effect of his skin from when he punches
Yeah.
his knee, and like I was like, holy shit, that's cool. It's
I
unnecessary.
love little unnecessary animation or even like just visual details on a character, extra lines, extra details, or just little unnecessary animations that make something
Like, look at
seem
that.
like more
It's like
realistic.
shadow. Yeah.
That's so good.
3 frames. That's all it was. But it's really
But I
neat.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for spotting that.
Of course.
You're good at spotting things that I don't necessarily
I just pay
notice
attention to
during the
weird shit, man. Okay, so then I wanted to see the lines that Sarah was saying to Rudius. I just wanted to thank you to pay my debt. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not truly into you. And like, it's interesting that Sarah herself like put up it, like, before she had that dialogue, the way that she kind of talked to Rudy about it, like, okay, you can have it, you know? Like it was already this like pre-established like decision that she made up in her mind that like that's how she was going to go about this whole thing, rather it being that they're actually pretty close to each other and they're like, and she's into him, you know? But yeah, I don't know.
I almost expected her to be more forward and not just kind of like, okay, here I am. You do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I almost expected her to be a personality that might have been more forward in that interaction.
Yeah.
That therefore would dispel the doubts that he seemed to have when they were in the bar.
Yeah. The highlight of my episode for me though came right afterwards. Like by far,
Definitely.
that interaction with Soul was so great. Not just because it happened, but the specific dialogue that Rudy used while it was happening.
And the pose that they're in, the parallel of that pose with Paul.
Yeah, it's awesome. I said it during the episode, and I like wondered it half jokingly. I could imagine sometimes they put these in like just random stories that you'll read or books that you'll read in regards to like fantasy. They leave something so open-ended that it allows fanfic to come into play and headcanons. And like, it's so easy to headcanon that one of the girls over the years that Paul slept with would be like, and that Soul would be his half-brother.
Yes!
Like, and like, it's one of those things that you never need to confirm or deny, but it's just enough that like fans or like viewers would just be like, you know what, I would believe it.
We know enough about Paul that is something that we could easily imagine, and they also have Soul in a color scheme that could fit as well, and having a personality that also could fit.
And like, if I'm the author and I had to come out and make a decision, which I never would, I would say, no, there's no relation. It's supposed to be thematic. It's supposed to be, if anything, it could be Rudy's perception of this character that is making the viewer think that they look more like Paul. Like, that's what I think the decision would be, but I love the open-endedness that it's kind of like my head's like wanting that in a weird way.
I really love the thought of like Rudy's perception. It's always so entertaining to like read or watch something and then start to actually unpack it and be like, this is this is a biased narrator. This is a biased protagonist that we're following. Like, oh, yes.
It's so good. I want to read a couple of the lines, though, to like remind myself, but also because they're so good. What's wrong with grinning like an idiot? Do you want me to go around insulting people and bragging like you do? It makes people resentful and jealous and disgusted, and it drives them away. But if I could keep acting cocky anyway, I'd do it too. I don't want people to hate me. I keep smiling so they won't. You know what's so interesting here? Like, what about that pisses you off? It's like Rudy's gone that extra step of, in his head, assuming that since Eris and Rui Jerd are gone, that must mean that they don't want to be around him and they hate him. And that's really sad. And you can see like how low Rudy's self-confidence is in general because of it, because he's trying to fake so much so people don't leave him. But that's a sad like realism to come to.
I know, we have this like really nice relationship of showing us both the pros and the cons of how Rudy has been carrying himself, and how as Quagmire he's been healing people without charge, and his name is being spread. He's easily making friends and connections, and the townspeople like him. But on the but then we also know the cons.
Yeah.
We know that he's hiding. He's hiding something, and he's also doing this in a form of somewhat manipulation, in a way to disguise himself as a person that no one would want to leave.
Why do you leave me? Stay. Smile even if you don't mean it. God damn it. This is like the highlight of the episode for me. Which is exactly
what he's doing.
Yeah. I loved that Soul sold it, I think.
Sold it?
Yeah. Soul's friend who came up to him and was like, take it easy. He didn't even need to do that. Like, the expression on Soul's face made me feel like he knew exactly, you know?
None of these hardcore adventurers in this bar needed to intervene or do anything. I don't know if this is just like my perception of this scene in terms of actual like physical touch, but Soul's face is minorly bloody, while Rudy's hand, when they show the close-up shots, is much more bloody.
Yeah, I just think that's good detail with consistency, because Rudy's a mage, you know?
Right, exactly. And I really like this idea that, like, he's hurting himself more with these words. Like, he's hurting himself with every punch. He's not hurting the person he's punching as much. And I really like that detail.
It's almost because it's not even like it's directed to Soul in the first place, so yeah.
And that what he's putting out there in the world is actually turning around and hurting him.
Yeah. I have a lot of wonder of what's going to come of Sarah, because I think like we already made our choice not to run after her, which was probably a really good choice to make, like to do that, to run after her, but that's just not where we are in terms of Rudy right now. And but I wonder if that means that Rudy leaves something. Like if Rudy like leaves a letter being like, it was my fault. I should never have said or did what I did. These are the reasons why I did that. I had somebody close to me in the past who left. I was scared, and just like kind of like explaining his emotions, because I think that if it was just anybody, I'd say that wouldn't work regardless, or wouldn't be necessary regardless. But Sarah cares about him to some degree. And yeah, at the moment, I think that she's probably thinking like, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. I never should have given you any time anyway. You're just a dick, you know? But that's not the truth. And I wonder if Rudy left something that, like a message or something, then later on Sarah would realize that's the case.
It's a good question in terms of like Rudy's character specifically is one that is more formal and out of his way, pleasing and making what people might say is the mature choice, even if it's just for appearances.
Yeah.
And so that is a good question to bring up of like, in this interaction, this ending, we're gonna get whisked away with Soul to go on this adventure in the labyrinth. How do we actually just like narratively, that would be interesting to have Rudy just walk away, walk away without anything. But
do we do to Sarah what Eris did to us? That's my concern. You know what I mean? Obviously, like, the circumstances are very different, but
you learn from your experiences, so are we going to see a Rudy that is learned from how he felt by a behavior or experience being done to him, and he doesn't want to enact that same feelings onto someone else?
I don't know. I think it's a interesting, it makes me very curious to see what we open up with next episode, because I wouldn't be surprised if we're already on the road at the beginning of next episode, but that doesn't mean we couldn't get like an inner monologue from Rudy being like, I'm glad I left a message, I'm glad I didn't, I'm glad I, said something, I don't know.
Because I'm like, I could see it being good for him either way, in the same way that I feel like there's this push and pull feeling about what Eris's actions were, like, inside my heart. Like, I'm like, she did what she felt like was best for her, and I'm proud of her for that. But then also, like, the emotional repercussions of your actions on someone else. I would feel that same way about Rudy's decision, whether to address this with Sarah before leaving or just leaving. Like, it might be good for him personally to just cast everything off and leave, but it also might be good for him to...
But I also want Sarah to keep the dagger. I want Rudy to leave a note with the dagger, leave the dagger, and her to like keep it.
Rudy doesn't need 2 daggers.
Sarah doesn't need to waste money and then not get anything from it. I'm worried about Sarah's financial state, truthfully, and I just want her money to be well spent.
How's Counter Arrow gonna do on their jobs without Rudy? I mean, he's a very powerful mage, and he basically
without Mimir. Rip.
Yeah, without
loser.
Mimir.
Dead.
He was their healer, wasn't he? And
he was there.
Rudy can also do healing magic, so now they're gonna have no healer. Oof.
I wonder, I don't think we're anywhere close from what, like, in season 1, we had the map that gave us some idea, and from my recollection, we are very far from where Zenith would be, like, just general area, or even from where Paul is, from the dialogue we got with Soul this episode. But I imagine
Millis is here and we're up here.
Just the idea of like labyrinths, and then don't rush through them. You should go floor by floor until you get stronger and acclimated to that floor and moving on. I wonder what this is going to do for Rudy in his journey to get to Zenith inevitably. I'm excited for it.
It's really, why is Zenith the final goal? You need to go through, like, the final princess to save in the tower, if you will, if you were in a video game, or the
like
final
narratively?
boss, like, narratively. The choice of the mother, of your mother, Zenith, being the final person that you need to save out of your family, and it taking there's so many steps to get there, and so much growth that you must go through in order to get there. I wonder... I would love to, like, try to, like, think a little bit more about that choice narratively. I
mean, it's great. It's great for 1,000 reasons, but an easy example is because of the interaction we already got with Paul. Like, holy shit. The direction that they wrote Paul's character, because Zenith is still missing, is fucking, like, a masterpiece. It's one of the highlights of this entire series for me. To see him with Stubble, taking care of his daughter, while trying to help everybody else who's been displaced by the Mana disaster.
It makes sense if Paul was the main character. Like, already I could easily talk about, narratively, the choice of Zenith being the final family member, with Paul being the main character. But with Rudy specifically being the main character, I am unsure at the moment. I almost want to go back to previous conversations and interactions that he had with Zenith as a child to see if any of them can inform a theory or a feeling in me of why Zenith
think about
is the choice.
How Zenith was always so, like, welcoming to even that idea of magic with Rudy. Like out of the two routes he could have gone with, like, fighting, he chose something.
Is it just the fact that
I'm sure it's a bunch of things.
That we get that scene, whether in the first episode or the second episode, where Paul's like, if we had a boy, you said he could be a swordsman, and if we had a girl, they were going to learn magic. But then Rudy, learns magic instead of using a sword, therefore connects him more with his mother. And also in maybe temperament, or how he probably learned how to handle upsetting situations from Zenith. From watching Zenith's actions in finding out that Paul had cheated on her, how she handles that whole situation. It's probably like she is, out of both parents, the one that he at least initially shaped himself on before starting on this path.
You know what's fucking nuts in this show? If you think about, like, where we are right now in, like, scale of this world or universe, we're, like, very tiny in a magnifying glass, right? But just a bit ago, we were all the way zoomed out looking at massive figures like Orsted and Nanahoshi and like Man God.
we just
and
went
how,
in a little bit
yeah, and how they're able to like balance this is fucking great because moments like we're given in this episode can be just as fruitful, if not more at times, as moments with those massive characters, you know? Like, it's all because Rudy's that main device and and has that foundation that's strong enough to be able to lend itself to either environment,
And
whether
he's
it's
a
more
really-
internal or external struggles.
He's a great balance as a main character of both being a special and being insignificant in this world. And there's a great balance there of like, yeah, he's a prodigy with magic. He can do incantationless magic. There's also the weird thing about him being reincarnated into this world, but he's also basically just an ant.
Yeah.
In this entire world, and there's a really great balance that's happening there.
I feel like it's a really good theme to like it potential, right? Because like obviously he has advantages in this world, but just as easy as he can choose to work hard and become one of the strongest characters in this world and have very significant effects, he could have easily just done nothing and stayed in his hometown, you know.
Like while he was
until the Mana disaster.
While he was given, you know, blessings and legs up and advantages, he was also given major disadvantages. None of these other people came into this life or were born into this life with a traumatic past life to have to get through. He came in like already, I can't think of the word right now, but he already has a, like, you know, boon and bane, you know, like in like Fire Emblem, you get to pick what skill that you have like better and what skill that you don't have as well, point wise, and he comes into this game both with some pluses and some minuses.
Yeah.
The other people just come in
blank slate.
Either a blank slate, maybe they're talented, or maybe they grow into a talented person. Maybe they're born into a well-off situation, and so they have maybe more pluses immediately in their lives. But still, he came into it with baggage, and can't say that unless some of these characters were reincarnated and also had traumatic pasts, then
I wouldn't think so.
No.
Yeah.
I think he's
the only
special.
All right, that's all I have you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope to see you next time.